jump and then the net will form. This is a quote that I've been thinking a lot about recently because I think it does a great job of describing a new way of thinking about taking action towards your desires. The net, the opportunities, the doors, they only open once you've actually jumped, once you've taken that leap and taken some sort of concrete, actionable steps towards your goals. In this video, I want to break down the old way of thinking about action and how this old paradigm keeps us stuck in a loop of uncertainty. Then, I want to describe a new approach of thinking about action. This new mindset thinks about action as a more playful task. Action becomes a method of exploration, and therefore action can be more playful, joyful, and exciting. So let's get started. In the old method of taking action, what we like to do is have our goal. Then we create a plan in order to get to our goal. And we take steps 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 towards our goals. So, for example, if I have a dream job, step 1 would be to talk to mentors who have had that job. Step 2 is to get the perfect internship. Step 3 is to get the job. Step 4 is to get the promotion. And finally, I can have the job that I desire. Now, this way of taking action is what Joe Dispenza would be calling the cause and effect. This is how we traditionally move through the 3D world, and this is how we usually get from point A to point B. We know what the effect of each step is. We can control it, and we can map out exactly how we want to get from point A to point B. However, there is a big issue. A lot of the times when we have a goal or desire in mind, the actionable steps and the plan is covered in a fog of uncertainty. We don't really know what steps 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 should be. We don't really know what the path to getting to our desire is. And since we don't know, and since we are covered in a fog of uncertainty, we end up feeling paralyzed. We end up feeling stuck, and we end up never actually taking actionable steps towards our desires. This is why in the manifestation community, it's really easy to get stuck in that cycle of intention setting, to make the vision board, but to never actually wake up and take an actionable steps towards that vision today. This is why I want to propose a new way of thinking about action. I want you to imagine that you are a frog in the middle of a very foggy lake. Your goal is to get to shore, but the fog is completely covering the lake. You don't see a clear path to get from where you are to the shore. Now, in the old paradigm of taking action, the frog would wait. It would wait for the fog to clear. Once the fog clears, it can see a clear path of lily pads laid out in front of it, and then it can start jumping from pad to pad in order to get to the shore. However, as we know, the fog doesn't clear. The uncertainty doesn't lift. The fog stays. So what can the frog do instead? What this frog does is it notices that there are 4 lily pads in front of it. It can't see the shore, but it can see the 4 lily pads right in front of it. It decides which one of these pads it finds the most intriguing and jumps towards that lily pad. As soon as it takes that jump, the fog around that section of the lake starts to clear, and suddenly the frog can see 3 more lily pads out in front of it. Again, it repeats the same process. It sees which one of these paths does it find the most exciting and jumps towards that path. Again, the fog clears, and now the frog can see even more of the lake that it didn't see before. Slowly, the frog is leaping, it's exploring, it's seeing more of the lake, and then moving closer and closer to the shore. In this way of thinking about action, the frog doesn't need to know the exact path to get to shore. All it needs to know is what's the next lily pad that I can jump to. I love thinking about action this way because I think there are 2 main advantages of action as a form of play and exploration rather than a disciplined step-by-step process to get to your goals. Firstly, the cool thing about this is that you cannot get it wrong. There's no such thing as a bad or wrong step. There's no such thing as bad action. Even if the frog were to jump to a lily pad that actually took it a little bit further away from the shore, what that action does is allows the frog to see parts of the lake that it didn't see before. It allows the frog to see different lily pads that it didn't see before. So even if the frog is quote unquote off the path, it still got to explore the lake. It still got to see different data points. It still gets clarity because it still gets to explore and have more data on what it doesn't really want. This is why action is so powerful. You don't need to have the perfect step, and you're allowed to make mistakes because each mistake is actually just giving you more data. It's allowing you to see more of the lake. It's allowing you to see different paths. It's allowing you to explore things that you wouldn't have previously explored. The other cool thing about thinking about action like this is that you don't need to know what how that action step is logically tied to your outcome. Not every lily pad has a direct correlation to the shore. In other words, not every actionable step can directly be linked towards your goal. Sometimes the actionable step can be taking a walk, it can be calling a friend, it can be going to the gym. You don't need to logically know how that step is actually going to lead you to shore. All you need to do is take that step and explore the lake and explore the different opportunities that are coming up with that step. This is great because now action is not that scary. It doesn't need to be perfect. It can be messy. You don't need to really understand how that actionable step is tied to your outcome. All you need to do is move and explore the lake. And the more exploration you do, the more clarity that you have. The more clarity that you have, the more precise, actionable steps that you can take. And what you'll see is you find yourself taking more and more steps towards the goal. And the more steps you take, the more positive momentum that you build. And you actually find yourself reaching your goals in a much quicker way, with a lot more positive momentum and a lot less stress because you're moving with joy and exploration rather than strict discipline. Now, I want to ground this with a concrete example in my life. Recently, I was looking for a job, and if I were to follow the old paradigm, I would update my resume, go on LinkedIn, and start applying to every job that I see that I am slightly interested in. This is a proven method. It's cause and effect. It's how I get from point A to point B. But I decided to be like the frog in the lake and take a different approach. I decided to look at what are the lily pads laid out right in front of me. What's the next most joyful step that I can take? I could have gone for a walk. I could have gone shopping. I could have called a friend. Or I could have gone to the gym. I decided to go to the gym. When I was at the gym, I actually met a stranger. We ended up talking and exchanging numbers. And then I went home and continued life as normal. In 2 weeks' time, the stranger had messaged me and told me that her roommate was actually looking to hire people, and they ended up giving me a referral, and I ended up interviewing and getting that job. In this case, you can see how the actionable steps were not very logical. It made no sense how going to the gym and talking to a stranger is going to lead me to getting a job. But those were just the next lily pads out in front of me. Those were just the next steps that I could take that I found exciting. Those were the next playful and explorational action steps that I wanted to take, and so I did. And those steps is what caused me to create momentum and to see opportunities that I wouldn't have seen before. I hope this video was helpful, and I hope that you can try to think about action in a different way. I hope that this video shows you how action doesn't need to be scary, how moving through uncertainty doesn't need to be scary, and how once we start thinking about action as playful steps, it can actually be easier to start moving towards your goals. Let me know what you think, and thank you for listening.